Rothschild, Just saying the name conjures up these images of incredible wealth, power, maybe even secret meetings that shape the world. For over 2 centuries, this one family has been at the very heart of global finance. But they're also at the center of a huge, furious debate. So who were they? Were they brilliant innovators who built a global dynasty from absolutely nothing? Or were they the shadowy architects of a massive global conspiracy? Today, we're going to dive into both sides of that story, using our sources to unpack these two, completely different narratives.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with the official story, their incredible rise from the ghettos of Frankfurt. Then, we'll see how 5 brothers built a continent-spanning empire and basically turned information into a weapon. After that, though, we pivot. We're going to look at a very different account, one that talks about secret societies and a hidden agenda for a so-called New World Order. And finally, we'll try to understand the legacy that fuels both of these powerful stories.
All right, so our first story kicks off in the 1760s. And you gotta picture this, the crowded, frankly smelly confines of the Frankfurt Jewish ghetto. I mean, this was a world with some serious restrictions. Jews couldn't own land, they couldn't farm, and they were blocked from most of the profitable trades. And it's in this world that a young guy named Mayer Amschel Rothschild basically decided, nope, I'm not playing by the rules that are designed to keep me down.
The speed of their rise is what's just truly mind-blowing. Think about it. In the 1760s, Mayer is just a humble coin dealer in a walled-off ghetto. It's one of the few businesses open to him because it deals with money, not land. But then, less than 20 years later, by 1782, his reputation is so good that he's managing the massive fortune of Prince William of Hesse-Kassel, one of the wealthiest rulers in all of Germany. You fast forward just 1 generation, and his son Nathan is in London, single-handedly bankrolling the entire British war against Napoleon. And then, just 1 more generation after that, his grandson Lionel shatters these huge social barriers to get elected to the British Parliament. From the ghetto to the absolute halls of power in under 100 years, it's just a staggering climb.
So how in the world did he do it? Well, it all started with this brilliantly simple, if a little sneaky, idea. See, when Prince William wanted to buy some rare coins, he'd send Mayer. But here's the trick. Instead of using the prince's money, Mayer would first borrow money to buy the coins for himself. Then, he'd turn around and sell those exact same coins to the prince at a higher price, claiming that was just the market rate. So he makes a nice profit on that markup, and then he collects his official 8% commission on top of it. He was getting paid twice on every single deal. It was this clever and, arguably deceptive practice of front-running that really built the foundation of the entire Rothschild fortune.
Mayer knew that to build a real dynasty, he couldn't just stay in Frankfurt. No way. He needed to be everywhere. He had to control the flow of money all across the continent. So, he comes up with this incredibly audacious plan. He's going to send his 5 sons to the financial capitals of Europe to set up a network of interconnected banks.
And this strategy was just geographical genius. Amschel, the oldest, he held down the fort in Frankfurt. Solomon, he went to the heart of the Habsburg Empire in Vienna. Nathan, who was the most ambitious of the bunch, was sent to London, the undisputed center of global finance. Karl went down to Naples, and James went to the rival power center of Paris. And you have to understand, these weren't 5 separate banks. No, they were 5 nodes in a single financial spiderweb that stretched across all of Europe. But the network's real strength wasn't just its reach, it was the philosophy behind it. Mayer knew this whole enterprise would only work if his sons worked together, not against each other, and he drilled this lesson into them. This wasn't just some nice fatherly advice, this was the core business model. The banks had to share information. They had to move money for each other seamlessly, and they always had to put the family's collective interest above their own. That principle, that was the real secret to their power.
So this family network, it became their greatest weapon during the absolute chaos of the Napoleonic Wars. It was way more than just a banking system. It was basically an intelligence agency. The Rothschilds figured out early on that in finance, information is everything, and the person who gets it fastest wins. And the family's power was really cemented with this one legendary deal. It's 1814. The Duke of Wellington's army is pushing into France, but he needs French coins to pay for supplies on the ground. The British government? Totally stumped. So Nathan Rothschild steps in. Using his network, he acquires gold, he converts it into French currency, and then uses his own smuggling routes to get the cash directly to Wellington's army. It was a logistical masterpiece that the government itself couldn't pull off, and it basically established the Rothschilds as the go-to bankers for entire nations in crisis.
So how did they keep this edge? Well, they built a private communication network that was faster than anyone else's, and that includes governments. They used relays of horses, dedicated couriers, even carrier pigeons to get news of, say, a battle outcome or political shift hours, sometimes a full day, before the public markets knew. This let them trade on that information before anyone else even knew what was happening. Today, we'd have a very clear name for that: insider trading. Back then, it was the ultimate competitive advantage.
And now, we're gonna pivot. We're leaving behind the story of financial genius and family ambition, and we're entering a much darker, much more controversial narrative. This is the account, drawn from our source material, that links the Rothschilds not to innovation, but to ancient secret societies and a hidden plan to control the entire world.
This second narrative is often framed by a really powerful quote, which is cited in our sources from President John F. Kennedy. Now, to be clear, he wasn't talking about the Rothschilds directly, but the quote is used to establish a certain worldview, one where powerful, secret groups are operating behind the scenes to shape global events. This is the lens through which this whole alternative history is told.
According to this viewpoint, the real key to understanding the modern world lies in this hidden lineage of secret knowledge. The trail, as this narrative lays it out, starts with the Knights Templar. You know, that wealthy and powerful order that was destroyed in the 14th century. Their secrets, or so the story claims, were preserved and passed down through other groups, eventually emerging with Freemasonry. And all of this supposedly culminated in 1776 with the founding of the most infamous secret society of all, the Bavarian Illuminati.
So what was the endgame? What was it all for? Well, the core claim in this narrative is that all of these interconnected secret societies, with the Illuminati at their center, have been working for centuries toward a single goal: the establishment of a new world order. A single world government that would completely erase national borders and sovereignty.
So what did this group supposedly want? The source material, interpreting historical documents, lays out a really radical, really revolutionary agenda. The alleged goals of the Illuminati were to basically dismantle the entire existing social structure, get rid of monarchies and patriotism, abolish all private property, destroy the family unit, and ultimately get rid of all traditional religion. It was a vision for a complete and total transformation of society.
Okay, so where do the Rothschilds actually fit into all of this? This alternative narrative makes two key claims to connect them to this grand plot. The first is that Mayer Rothschild's initial success came directly from being the banker for high-ranking Illuminati members like Prince Karl of Hesse-Kassel. So in this view, the family didn't just get rich, they were actively elevated by this secret network. The second claim jumps way forward to the 20th century, and it suggests that huge movements like political Zionism were actually a tool of the Rothschilds, citing things like the Balfour Declaration being addressed specifically to Lord Rothschild.
So here we are. We have two profoundly different stories, and they both revolve around the same family. One is a tale of unprecedented success in the world of finance. The other is a tale of a hidden hand guiding global events from the shadows. In our final section, we're going to put these two interpretations side by side to really understand why one family name can inspire such wildly contradictory legacies.
And this really brings us to the Great Divide. On one side, you have the dynasty, a family that used pure genius, ambition, and an unbreakable family bond to rise from a ghetto to the absolute pinnacle of global finance. They profited from wars, for sure, but it was through superior intelligence and better strategy. On the other side, though, you have the conspiracy, a story where the Rothschilds are the masterminds behind a secret plot for a new world order, manipulating wars not just for profit, but to push forward a centuries-old agenda for total control.
Ultimately, the story of the Rothschilds forces us to ask a really fundamental question about power. One narrative is built on documented financial history. The other is built by connecting dots that exist deep in the shadows. But their deliberate secrecy and their unprecedented private influence over entire nations, it created a kind of vacuum. And it makes you wonder, when a family accumulates that much power, so far beyond what anyone else has, is the story of genius and ambition enough to explain it all? Or does that vacuum of secrecy just inevitably get filled by our darkest suspicions?